Hello and welcome to Arena FPS News, episode number 29. Now, it's been a bit of a while, and we're sorry, but we're back with a vengeance, and we have news for you. So to kick it off, let's have a look at Reflex 0.39, which released fairly recently. Now, Tim, I'm going to level with you here. There was a bit of an outcry about a certain F word, which dropped with this patch. Yeah, there was a little bit. Yeah. What happened?
So they added some fog to the map.
Yes. For all the maps.
Yes, and this is in other games. It's not like a weird reflex thing, and it's adjustable by the map editor. Basically, I think it's for like depth perception and things like that. And
yeah.
So it's like a little haze, not a haze. That's not a good way to describe it.
Mist.
It's like a fog. A mist over the map, which is good for depth perception. It's not a huge deal. Like when I first saw it, it was a bit of a shock, but it was unadjusted by any of the map makers. And
I think that was the biggest thing, where because I've actually rolled this back now, and they've added a CVAR so you can turn it on or off as a player. But originally, I think the issue was they kind of just added a default amount of fog to all the maps, and it meant that it was probably too much for most maps. But if you actually go and look at maps where the map makers put on a reasonable amount in a reasonable place, then it's actually quite cool. Like on Toxikk 13, Toxikk added it. You know, the the mega area at the bottom.
Yeah.
It's like pooling in there. It's kind of a nice little effect, and it's not too thick. But I think most of the initial angst was just because it was kind of a default setting.
Yeah, that's what got me. Is I thought that you couldn't. I thought you weren't going to be able to turn it off, and a big thing about Arena FPS games is that they're so customizable. Yeah. And you can kind of tweak all these little options, and I thought having it forced on might be a bit too much, but if you can turn it off now, then it's fine with me.
Yeah. Also in that patch, they added the workshop integration, which is fan-bloody-tastic as a server owner. With 3 servers, instead of having to like constantly go on Reflex files and download maps and upload them, getting bitched at constantly, you can just subscribe to them on Workshop, and it's quite easy to like publish a map on Workshop. I've done it with my map, Guildy M1. That is Guildy M1 so hot right now. That is Guildy M1. But yeah, it's really easy, and a lot of mappers have done this, and it's just, if I want to go play my map on any server, I can do now, which is great. That's something they've been like desperately needing for a while, and it's
nice that everyone's on the same version of the map.
Yeah, that's the most important thing. Especially for tournaments and stuff. See, it's easy to make sure you're practicing the right version for a tournament, and then the version you use at a tournament's the same version that people practiced on. So that's really cool. And third and finally, they updated the burst gun. So this had a little bit of controversy, but I think it wasn't.
Did it?
Well, the fact that the spread is random.
Right, yeah, sorry. The way it works, no doubt, was met with some controversy, but the way it looks, the model for it is really, really nice. I didn't know they could achieve that sort of look with the art style they went with. I was quite surprised.
Yeah, I think I saw Electro like streaming him actually working on it one day, and it was coming along really nicely. I just hope that they can find the time to do that level of detail for every one of the weapons they have. And
yeah, me too. I'd love to see the other guns have that sort of stuff done to it.
And it feels much more. It's like a lot smaller now. It's kind of more handheld. And it feels more suitable for like kind of the way it works. Also, it fires 6 little like bursty things instead of 3 now.
Pellets.
Yeah, pellets. And I can't remember the damage off the top of my head actually.
I think there's 7 each.
Is it 7? Okay.
Yeah, 6 shots, 7 damage with a random spread, but it's random in quite a small radius.
Yeah. I kind of prefer it. It was a little bit of getting used to, but I kind of prefer it now. It feels a little bit more like even though the spread's a bit random, it feels easy to hit somebody with, at least hit more damage than what you could do before. Like before, you'd maybe get 10 or 20 damage, you'd almost never get the 30. So I think overall it's a very positive change.
Yeah, I'm fine with it.
There are some other minor things in that patch as well, but I will show you the patch notes and you can have a look at that. Aside from that, shall we have a look at the UT patch?
Yes.
So there's only been one for quite some time, and this one in particular, they've increased the player model size, which is I don't know if I felt like it was necessary. I've not played it. Well, I've played since, but I've not played to the point where it was immediately obvious, so it must have been a fairly small change. And I guess it was just kind of bring it in line with some meshes, like the default mesh size, possibly. I'm not entirely sure.
Yeah, I wonder if it means that map makers will have to make some changes. Like when it's happened on Reflex, that meant lots of maps had to be updated and stuff. I'm not sure if that's the same deal with UT.
Yeah, well, it might have been that they actually felt like the map makers were making maps that are too, like, small, big. Wait, player models been increased. So maybe maybe the developers felt like the maps need to be. The player model needs to be increased in size to fit the maps better. Possibly, I don't know. They don't give like a really in detail like reasoning on the patch notes. So, but I get it. Like Reflex went for a similar thing with the player model change. Not that long ago either, actually. So it could just be like player models changing is something that happens during development, but we're not used to seeing that because we're usually not privy to games being developed in this way. Apart from that, they added another map called DM Sand, which is a deathmatch kind of sandy map. Obviously, kind of sounds like obvious, but it looks cool. It's kind of they've been doing a lot of kind of more futuristic stuff recently, and kind of foresty looking things, and it's obviously kind of a bit of a departure from the art style they've been focusing on in the past. So that's quite nice to see. And I think that I really loved about UT back in the day was how diverse the aesthetics was for like the art direction, whereas Quake is kind of less Quake, but it's all kind of brownish, grim maps. There wasn't a great deal of difference between the different map designs, particularly not as much as UT anyway.
Well, I think I've been Stockholm affected with that, and I quite like the brown blandness.
I always preferred. That's the reason why I liked UT more as a kid, because I preferred the art direction, how broad it was. And another change in this UT patch is they've upgraded the Unreal Engine to 4.11, which again they don't give a great deal of information about, but I assume that means they can use tools in the newer versions of the engines, because it actually skipped about 4 versions, I think. From I think it was 4.08 to 4.11, which should hopefully give them some, if nothing else, some efficiency with frame rates, but also some tools. So that's exciting. Just it's nice to see kind of progress again after the Christmas holidays. There was a bit of a dry spell between December and January. Shall we move on? Toxikk. So Toxikk has been a game that's kind of been I don't want to say haunted, but like held back by the infrequent updates, and they've released a custom content SDK with workshop support, which is fantastic news I think for the community, because it means that they can get along and develop things that they want to put into the game themselves, whether it's maps or I'm not sure the breadth of what you can do with it, but I'm sure maps is the first thing that people are going to start working on. And just giving like more content for a game that has, I think that's the biggest reason why it's been so slow in like retaining and getting more players, and like Reflex where there's a huge amount of content. So that's really good news for them.
Yeah, I mean right before this patch it was a game with less than 10 maps that were of
about 5 maps, wasn't it?
Quality. Yeah, maybe 5 maps that weren't great from what we played at least.
Yeah.
So if the community are going to step up and do this and make some maps and stuff, then we could end up with a game that is a UT-like dual game or TDM game or whatever with some pretty good maps. So
yeah, and it's definitely faster than UT and has like different advantages over UT in certain aspects. I know a lot of people who kind of prefer UT 2004 movement are really digging Toxikk. Yeah, so that's great news for them. Also, it's kind of like, if it's going to have any chance of taking off, I think this is it. So kind of watch this space.
ended up on the sub today. So that was nice to see. I don't think we've ever seen one of them.
No, and hopefully that's kind of like the revitalization of that game. This patch.
Yes.
So Doom 4 leak now. This is exciting for many people, myself very much included.
Potentially exciting.
Well, even if it's only one or two of these things are in of the list of things they've discovered in the leaked version, because for a long while a lot of people were like, oh wow, Doom 4 is just going to be like a console shooter with kind of some pandering to old school arena shooter players, but they seem to be the leaks seem to be hinting that it might actually be a lot more down our alley as arena FPS fans.
And I wonder if that's a reaction to the responses they got, because I thought the majority of responses they were getting were from console gamers saying that everything's great. I didn't see an awful lot of people on the official alpha forums saying, this game's too slow, or this game, shouldn't have loadouts or anything like that. All the responses kind of seem to be affirming what ID already wanted with the game, so I didn't think we were going to see any changes. But if this stuff is real, then maybe that's not the case.
It could be kind of... I think a lot of these things, if these things are in the game, I would imagine they would have been in there for a long time. It's not like they've suddenly been like, okay, let's put strafe jumping in, which is one of the things on the list. And that's something that they probably had to spend quite a while over implementing. I assume that's true. I might be talking out my arse here. So it might just be that they just never wanted to use that as a selling point. Because the kind of people that are interested in these things, you don't need to market to them. They're just going to buy the game because it's an ID soft arena shooter.
I think there's more people out there that just want to shoot demons on their sofa than there are who want a hardcore arena FPS game out of it.
So I've got this theory that they might be trying to kind of cultivate something, not necessarily Quake 5, but to fill that gap. And maybe they're using like a modified rule set of the engine. Maybe it's like a mod or something for Doom with all these things turned on, which they use as like for competitive 1v1 mode, because esports is very, like, it's even for ID, it's like you can't turn a blind eye to how popular esports is. And I think any company worth its salt is going to be wanting to pander towards that market right now, and going down the arena shooter would be a very obvious kind of pathway for the game. So it could be that that's what they're doing. They're going to try and... They're not releasing it... They might release it separately as like DLC or something. It's like, this is the, inverted commas, Quake 5 or Doom esports version. And it kind of has lightning gun and strafe jumping, etc, etc. I don't know.
It's a beautiful theory. I really hope that's true.
Yeah.
Should we run through the actual things?
Yeah, I was about to say that. Do you want to kick us off?
Yeah, so first, one of the major ones was mod tools. So SnapMap was looking a bit limp when it comes to creating a proper environment with customized geometry and things like that. It was looking a bit weak.
Restricting,
for that.
Yeah,
restricting. Like it's made for the casual person to sort of come in and come up with a cool project, kind of like Halo's Forge mode.
Yes.
But we didn't know if we were going to get any actual actual ability to put in custom maps and things like that. It looks like there is a mod tool in the game called ID Studio, but it's not yet revealed whether the public are going to have access to that or not, or if it's something that's just used internally. We don't know where that is.
Yeah, hopefully something they can relent to. If nothing else, they can just kind of eventually, through pressure, release, even if it's not something that they release on the first version of the game.
Yeah.
That's what I'd like to see.
It looks like there's a potential server setting for strafe jumping.
Yep.
Again, we don't know if that's something that the public will have access to, or if it's something just inside the code to turn it off.
It's something that you can't accident. Like, I know strafe jumping was
I think it's
a bug of the old engines, but yeah, it's something these guys have had to sit down and code into the engine. So the fact that they've spent time developing it would seem to suggest it was going to be available to the public at some point.
I mean, I think ID Tech 5 had strafe jumping in, as default. So it might be the case that with this version they still just have to turn it off.
Possibly, yeah, possibly.
Because Rage had strafe jumping, and
but I think this is a new engine, isn't it? That's
this is ID Tech 6, but if it's just a modified version of the old engine, it might be the case that it still has it in and they have to turn it off. I'm not sure, but again, up in the air. No one knows yet. Nothing's been confirmed. They talked about a bunch of additional weapons, including a lightning gun.
Yeah.
They look like they definitely will be. There's no point making them if they're not going to give them to people. They look like they'll be in the game, maybe just different maps, different levels, who knows. And there was an option to disable finishers in multiplayer, which that's something that's been pissing off a lot of people. Finishers in multiplayer games. Like that's the scripted melee animations I'm referring to. So if that can be turned off, that's a big plus for it.
I don't know. I've not actually played the multiplayer game, but if they could have all these features together, and allow people to create kind of 1v1 maps, you could potentially create a decent duel game out of it, which a lot of people weren't expecting before.
More than decent.
Yeah, I mean decent enough to play like a competitive level. So I can't see any of the the Revenant mode. I can't see that being competitive in any sense.
Where you pick up the quad thingy into a Revenant.
I can't see them trying to turn that into an esport. And every company under the sun wants to make their game into an esport in 2015, 2016.
Well, take out the animation where you turn into it, and it's fine because it's fun to do and it's very powerful. It's just that animation where you transform is what's iffy about it.
But also, it's kind of like a free-for-all type. Isn't it a free-for-all game mode, that one as well?
No, that's in TDM and stuff.
Oh, okay.
So it's a worthwhile power-up to fight over, is what I gathered from playing it. But it's like all these things are in the code. They're all there. They just have to give them to the public, and it could be a really good game. Like, I'm more hyped for it just knowing that these things might be given to us.
Yeah, I kind of felt like it was a write-off from a kind of serious perspective. It was kind of a game that you buy just to play with like really casual mates, a bit like Overwatch, for example. But it's definitely looking like there's a possibility for something a little bit more serious, competitive-wise, that might come out of it, which would be amazing. I'd be up for that. I think it's summer this year it's out, is it? Is it meant to be out by QuakeCon?
Ooh, I don't know actually. I think they did say summer, so if it's out by QuakeCon... I mean, even if it's not, I'm sure they'll do something at it for QuakeCon. Maybe
they're definitely going to do something.
With the version they have or something.
Cool. So we don't have tournament news, but what we do have is we've decided to update the sidebar on the subreddit, which is r/ArenaFPS, with regular tournament news. So if there's a tournament coming up, we'll have it up there a few days beforehand if you want to either play, watch, or just generally be aware of what's available. I think there's kind of a Quake World thing going on at the moment, and there's a Reflex thing at the weekend, and also a Warsaw Cup at the weekend. So just keep an eye on that, and if you want to find any tournament information, there's your place to go. Anything to add?
No.
Ah, cool. Okay. Guess that's the video, guys. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll have more content for you on the horizon shortly, imminently, beautifully, gastronomically.